Okay.
Okay, this is an e-fern bowl. Some people call them efferges, but it's a French word. And these are made at Fenton's. And each piece is made individually. They're pressed. And they have a plunger that goes in the bottom that makes the holes. And they're a cup bowl when they're made. And then they reheat them in a glory hole. And then they have a wire crimp that they actually turn it upside down, put it down over the wire, and then with a foot pedal, the guy crimps the crimp it. And
so it starts out as a flat plate, and then the tool makes the even ridges.
It makes these ridges, yeah. Oh. It's just a wire, actually made out of a wire.
Oh.
These are done the same way. They're pressed. Everything's marked Fenton in later years, since 1970. This one was done hot, and then while it's hot, flared out, and then he takes a wooden paddle and flares this down and takes a pair of pinchers, what we call pinchers. They're wood, and he pulls this tulip up on it, and that's how that's made. Now the top one is longer, and it's just done with the wire crimp, and they don't make the tulip top.
Oh, you can see where the wire would actually go.
Yeah, this is where the wires actually, the heat just lets it sag, and then they got this little foot crimp that comes down and hits the back of this and makes those. It's all done the same way, really, all these littler ones, except that one. And those are our e-ferns. This piece is an early piece of Fenton that was made by a group of Belgians that came through in 1926. This is all freehand, done in a wooden mold again. I wasn't there, so I can't explain how they done it, but they turned it as they blew it, and it had frit. They would take the piece, they would gather a piece of glass, in this case with the base would be amethyst or purple. They would lay little pieces of chunks of glass in different colors on what we call a marble, a little table. And then they would roll this, looks like a little log, out into the frit. Then they would blow a bubble in it, and then put it in the wooden mold and blow it out. And when they did that, the collars would come out in it, and they'd reheat it and melt them in. Then they would take the threads are put on by a guy actually holding this piece with a snap, and another guy dripping glass, and he's spinning it. The guy's sitting at his workbench, spinning it as he lays the threads on. And this is called a threaded mosaic. And then the panel mark where it was stuck up is ground off. But this piece would be, if it was in excellent shape, would be about $3,000 piece.
Beautiful.
Remember all the pieces we talked about. This piece was made for the commemorative, the 200th anniversary of the United States, and this was a mold that took 1 year to make. They made this in several colors, and it's got Monticello, and then it has epitaphs and things wrote on it about the presidents. But this piece here, they would make about 150 to 200 pieces in a 4-hour time period. That was without the lid. The lid would be a separate made piece. And this base is blue. They made them in red. They made them white and chocolate. And it was for red and white and blue for the year.
Sure.
This piece was a commemorative piece. They made some pieces to go with it. Paul Revere here was made. And again, all this detail was hand-picked with files. Once this is done and made, then they put it on a copy machine, and they make another mold, because they always have 2 molds. That way they can make things faster. So let's see if we got a piece of barber here. In 1976, they also introduced the barber line. And And these pieces were also done with cherry wood molds. And this is a feather vase. This one would have been a second quality because it's faded out. But these pieces were done freehand, and there was limited. They only made like 750 of them, I think, in this color. But there was 8 different pieces, and these pieces are much heavier than some of the early pieces in the 20s. But this is all freehand done by pulling them out. They would take the collars and actually take an ice pick and pull this to bring in these feathery looks. These pieces are 1970s, 1965, 1970. They're Vasa Marina. Again, they're in the day, and they were laid out by making that little log and rolling it in frit, and you'll see a venturine green and what we call a venturine green. They'll have little mica pieces in it. And then it was blown, reheated, and they would gather crystal over top of it. And this piece has actually got a crystal coat. If you look real close on the bottom, you can see the crystal. So it's encased in crystal. And that was called Vasa Marina. And that's, I think, a French name that means end of day. And they did that in several different colors.